Hey there, Crown Corner fam. It's your host, Crown, back with another set of stories that'll make you laugh, gasp, and maybe even shed a tear. From gardens to ice cream parlors, weddings to restaurants, we've got it all. So grab your favorite snack, sit back, and let's dive into the world of the unexpected and the utterly bizarre. Let's go. I've always been a garden gal. Ever since Grandpa showed me how to plant my first sunflower. I remember how he'd say, "Let your roots run deep and your soul bloom," every time we dig into the earth. My garden, a patchwork of vibrant colors and sweet scents, was more than just a hobby. It was a piece of my heart. One morning I was out there, dirt under my nails, sun on my back, when Catherine, from next door, peeked over the fence. "Your roses are divine, hon," she said that. I grinned, handing her a few cuttings. I replied, "Spread the joy, Kathy." Life was simple then, just me and my blooms. My garden was my sanctuary. There were tulips that danced in the breeze, marigolds that shone like little suns, and a cherry tree I'd babied since it was a twig. I'd spend hours out there, sometimes with a beer in hand, just watching life buzz and flutter around me. A bad piece shattered the day I found a letter from the Homeowners Association, the HOA, wedged in my mailbox. It was like finding a snake in my Eden. The letter was all fancy words and legal jargon, but the message was clear. My garden didn't fit their standards. I crumbled the letter saying, "Standards my foot." More letters came, each more threatening than the last. They talked about fines and compliance, about how my garden wasn't up to class. Not up to class? That hurt more than the fines. I remember storming over to Frank, the HOA president, a man as rigid as his starched collars. "My garden's none of your business," I told him. Frank, with that smug smile, just said, "Rules are rules, sweetheart. You'll comply, or you will pay." I walked away, fists clenched, thinking, in your dreams, Frank. The fines started small but piled up like autumn leaves. Each new notice from the HOA felt like a slap in the face. I'd find them taped to my front door, reminding me all the time that my little paradise was under siege. I tossed each one into the trash, unopened. Money-grubbing vultures. I'd spit. My friend said I should just pay up, avoid trouble, but it wasn't about the money. It was about principle, about defending the little patch of earth that meant the world to me. The feud with Frank wasn't new. We had history, dating back to when he'd moved into the neighborhood. He'd always been a stickler for rules, once reporting me for a fence that was 2 inches too high. One evening, nursing a beer on my porch, I reminisced about our first clash. "You're blocking my view," he had complained. Of what? The sky? I had shoved back. Thinking about it, I realized this garden war wasn't just about flowers. It was an old grudge, blossoming into something ugly. It wasn't just about the garden, I discovered. There was talk of the HOA planning something big. Something that involved tearing down the older houses for new developments. My property was right in the thick of it. I remember chatting with Neil, who owned the corner store. "It's all about money, my friend," he said, ringing up my groceries. "Your garden's just the first domino, just a way to provoke you to make a mistake so they could hang their nooses." That night, lying in bed, I thought about it. My garden wasn't just in Frank's way, it was in the way of their grand plans. This was bigger than I thought. The morning the bulldozer came, it felt surreal. I was sipping my coffee when I heard the rumble. Rushing outside, I saw Frank, perched atop a bulldozer like a king on his throne, heading straight for my garden. "Stop! You can't do this!" I yelled. Frank just sneered. I watched in horror as the bulldozer's blade sliced through my tulips, my marigolds, my cherry tree. It was like watching a part of me being torn away. I felt something snap inside. In a daze, I went back inside and grabbed my rifle. I needed to make a stand to protect what was mine. I stormed back out, rifle in hand, adrenaline pumping. "Get off my land, Frank!" I shouted. Frank, oblivious or uncaring, kept going. And that's when I fired. It was meant to be a warning shot, but unfortunately, it took a piece of his ear. Blood, screams, chaos. The next thing I knew, police were cuffing me, reading me my rights, my garden was ruined, and so it seemed was my life. The arrest was a blur. Questions, fingerprints, a cell that smelled like old sweat. My lawyer, a decent woman named Linda, was a godsend. She assured me We will fight this. You were defending your property. The trial was a circus. The media in my country loved the guarding gunwoman story. I sat there in a soup that felt too tight, listening to Frank's exaggerated account of the attack. Belinda was brilliant. She painted the picture of a woman pushed to the brink, defending her home against corporate greed. The trial dragged on, each day a battle. Frank and the HOA had their lawyers, slick men in slicker suits. Belinda was relentless, chipping away at their story, revealing their plans for the neighborhood. Witnesses came and went. Catherine spoke about my character, about my garden. It was a piece of art, she said that. The jury saw the photos of my garden before and after. The before shots showed a paradise. The after, a wasteland. It was a fight for justice for every little person who'd ever been stepped on by the big boots of greed. The verdict came on a sunny afternoon. Not guilty. The courtroom erupted, but all I could think about was my garden. About starting over. Later, Linda advised me to file a lawsuit against the HOA, and we did, eventually scoring ourselves a hefty $100,000 compensation. It was bittersweet. It couldn't bring back my cherry tree or the years of love poured into that soil, but it was a start, a chance to rebuild. Months later, my garden was blooming again. It wasn't the same yet, but it was alive. Neighbors stopped by, some to apologize, others to admire. Catherine said, "You've done something amazing here." I smiled and said, "Just letting my roots run deep." She then asks me, "Have you heard?" I asked back, "Heard what?" The HOA's been disbanded. Turns out the trial had exposed more than just the injustice against my garden. Evidence came to light about mismanaged funds, secret deals, and the HOA's push for unnecessary fines to bolster their own agendas. The community was outraged. The final blow came at the emergency neighborhood meeting. It was held at the local community center, a place usually reserved for bake sales and bingo nights. One by one, residents stood up and shared their stories, their frustrations with the HOA. When it came time to vote on the future of the HOA, the result was unanimous. The HOA was to be disbanded, effective immediately, and legal actions were to be taken to ensure that. As for Frank, he became a ghost of the community. Last I heard, he had moved away. In the end, to me at least, it wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about standing up, about fighting for what you believe in. Quick pause, folks. If you're loving these wild tales, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to K-Korner, and drop a comment below. Your support keeps these stories coming. Now let's jump back into the action. So I work at a popular ice cream franchise. My store also sells your normal fast food. I say this because I know there are some specific stores out there that are just ice cream. I work in the ice cream section. I deal with anything with ice cream, blended drinks, and baked treats on a daily. I always wear a headset so I can listen to drive-thru orders and help make sure the drive keeps good times by staying on top of everything. This one night, we were absolutely slammed on a drive-thru. Thankfully, the front didn't have any orders, so my partner and I didn't need to work as much. This one lady comes up to the speaker, orders her food, and then she orders one of our parfaits, which consists of hot fudge, peanuts, and ice cream. We were still a couple orders behind in my station, so I didn't worry too much about hurrying to get it done. But that is when the lady gets snarky with our drive-thru person. "Don't you dare make bad until I get to the window," she says that. "Every time I come here, the parfait is always completely melted." My manager pipes in with her sickeningly nice tone of voice. "If you'd love, we can replace the hot fudge with cold fudge, because the hot fudge is what makes the ice cream melt." She doesn't usually treat customers like children, but this lady needed this treatment. No," the lady responds, audibly offended and sounding as though my manager had just asked her the dumbest, most obvious question in the world. "I want it normal." Now, if she requested nicely that we wait on making her parfait, I would have asked our drive-thru person to let me know as soon as the car in front of her drove off, so I could make her parfait as fast as possible to give her the best, non-melted parfait that she had ever received. But because she had to talk to him and my manager like that, everyone with headsets shared the same exact thoughts. She wants it made when she gets to the window, so be it. When our drive-thru person told me she was at the window, I went in slow motion. This lady had been waiting at least 5 minutes in the line at this point, thanks to the people in front of her ordering a lot of the grill section. I was sure she wouldn't mind waiting another minute or so for her parfait. I paced myself so that her fast food got to her first, slowly but surely making the parfait. After all, she didn't specifically say anything about still making it fast, right? Yes, the hot fudge started melting the bottom layer of ice cream, but surely it was better than being completely melted. After the parfait was done, we got it out and continued on with our lives. But I desperately wish I could have seen the look on her face when she waited more time than necessary for something and most likely still melted by the time she got home. Moral of the story, don't be a snark lord to fast food workers, especially on a busy night. They have the ability to make everything a little more mildly inconvenient for you, and you could end up being the butt of their jokes for months to come. Edit? Yes, I do understand that I too acted pretty scummy in this situation, so I don't blame any of you for being judgmental of my actions. Thankfully, she was the final person of the drive-thru line while I was making her parfait, so no unfortunate soul had to wait with her. We did get hit again a few minutes later though. I honestly would like to thank those of you who voiced your concerns about that whole ordeal. It's just that my coworkers are like family to me, so hearing that lady not only making her request in the snobbiest way possible, but also talk to my coworkers as though they were incompetent, just rubbed me the wrong way. Yes, it could have been handled better, but since it's now in the past, I've grown to learn from it. I honestly didn't think this post would garner as much attention as it did. So thanks again to all of you who took your time to read through this, give your feedback, express your concerns, and all the like. I'm planning on posting more stories about work, but on different subreddits of course. I'm going to have a phone call tonight with a friend to tell her that I don't want her boyfriend at my micro wedding. We were going to elope originally, but have some aging family that would be meaningful to have there. We changed our plans and ended up making a very small list of our nearest and dearest. For context, last spring I moved across the ocean to be with my fiancé. We are having a very small micro-style wedding. My friend was asking about it and sounded like she really wanted to attend. I explained there are no plus ones, but if she could come, that would be lovely. Apparently, her boyfriend, who I've only met twice, had a thing about being left out, and she told me that. I asked her to just explain to him that no one gets a plus one. At some point, Todd said something about money, why we were keeping it small, and she clung to that. A few days after she and I talked, I got this text. We both want to be there for you for your wedding. We've already budgeted for it for the year. We'll make the timeline work with our stuff. He says don't worry about our costs for the after-party expenses. You're important to me and it's important to be there for this big life event. We love you both, and I'm already looking at tickets and trains and lodging. Send me more details as you get them. We're going to be there. I was panicking, and I said, don't book anything yet. We haven't booked anything yet, but I will keep you updated. Stalling. Did you talk to him about what I told you? It's people we only know really well. Not that I don't want to get to know him, but it's just a very small wedding with just a few of our closest people. Honestly, my heart is racing right now. Maybe what I should have said is, no, you misunderstood. He's not welcome for the after events or the weekend. It is only to be people I'm close to and my fiancé is close to. But that's not what I said. Because she responded, we won't book yet. I was looking stuff up for price estimates. Yes, he said he'd sit out for the ceremony or reception if that's the concern. It's more about traveling and being together. He's been to weddings where his partners weren't invited. He gets it. We're paying for ourselves. Standing room only, no problem. We need to eat before and just sit around. That's okay too. We want to be there to celebrate you and your fiancé and your love. I didn't respond for over a week, then texted, can we schedule a phone call to talk about my wedding? I think I need to clarify some things. It's the ceremonies, the photos after we're all going to multiple places, and the meal after. It's a special time to me, and I only want people I'm close to for this event in my life. Am I the jerk here? If I'm not the jerk, how would you say no to the boyfriend? Please help. Thanks everyone for your responses. I agree that I don't need to worry about what happens outside my wedding and not worry about whether or not he comes with her, as long as she's clear on what he's not invited to, practically everything. Me and my then husband will be back in my hometown where they live over the summer, and we'll have a big get-together to celebrate with everyone else, so he will be invited to that, and I will let her know that when I speak to her tonight. And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, "You're not the jerk. Your friend is refusing to take the hint. I'd be interested to know what she's told him. If he's only met you twice, I doubt he loves you both or wants to be there to celebrate you and your love. He obviously hasn't been invited, so why does he think he is? Only a complete bore would show up at something they weren't invited to. I don't see what you can do except tell her bluntly that her boyfriend isn't invited. Of course, you can't stop him from traveling with her even if he doesn't attend any events. He will probably end up having to uninvite her if you don't want him there." Another commenter adds, "Nobody's a jerk, but make it clear to her. I think there was a miscommunication. I don't want your boyfriend to participate in my elopement. I won't compromise on this. My sister's fiancé isn't coming either. I don't want him in the activities that we do together. If he decides to come, he cannot come to any of our activities. I will send you a rough schedule with all of our activities so you can choose what you want to do with us and what you want to do with him. If you can only participate on a wedding date, that's okay too. I understand that he wants to travel with you, so I don't expect you to be with us for all the duration of the trip. You should also understand that this is my wedding and I don't want your boyfriend there. It's an intimate wedding with the people I love. I don't know your boyfriend, so he is not on that list. I have to be blunt and I'm very sorry if this hurts you. If you don't want to come anymore because you want to travel with your boyfriend only, I also understand that. Tell me by X dates so I can plan my trip. Also, don't give any extensive information about the trip. Just mention activities and rough prices, not exact prices. You don't want your friend and her boyfriend to conveniently show up at your activities, so don't give them the power to do so. Her boyfriend is a huge red flag. He shouldn't have insisted. He doesn't know you, and this is just him being a jealous and controlling jerk. Protect your wedding. You don't want that boyfriend there." It was an ordinary day at the Sizzling Skillet, a cozy little restaurant in the heart of the city. I was there enjoying my usual shift as a head chef. It was a job I loved, creating dishes that made people smile. But that day, oh boy, that day was going to be anything but ordinary. Enter Karen. Now, you probably met a Karen before, you know, the type who thinks the world revolves around them? Well, this Karen was the queen of them all. She came in with a scowl that could curdle milk and sat down at a table, demanding the best service we had. Everything started off typically enough. She ordered our signature dish, the herb-crusted salmon. It was a recipe I perfected over years, and it had never failed to impress. So I cooked it with the care and precision it deserved, and our waiter took it out to her with his usual cheerful smile. But the moment that dish hit the table, I knew we were in for trouble. Karen took one bite and her face twisted like she'd just bitten into a lemon. The waiter, bless him, rushed over and asked, "Is everything alright with your meal, ma'am?" Karen glared up at him. "This is unacceptable," she hissed, her voice dripping with disdain. "The salmon is undercooked. The seasoning is all wrong, and it's just awful." The waiter, ever the professional, apologized and offered to bring her something else. But Karen wasn't having any of it. "I don't want anything else from this pathetic excuse for a restaurant," she spat. Before we could react, Karen did the unthinkable. She scooped up the salmon with her hand and flung it right at me, standing in the kitchen doorway. The fish hit me square in the face, and for a moment, the whole place went silent. Now, I've dealt with difficult customers before, but this was a first. I stood there, salmon dripping down my chef's jacket, as Karen started ranting. "You call yourself a chef? This is an insult to food," she yelled, drawing the attention of everyone in the restaurant. The waiter tried to calm her down, but Karen was on a roll. She stood up, knocking her chair over, and started shouting about how she was going to tell everyone how terrible we were, how she'd make sure we were shut down. Then that's when things went from bad to worse. She started throwing whatever she could get her hands on. Plates, glasses, silverware. It was like a tornado of fury and entitlement. Guests were ducking and dodging as Karen continued her rampage. I couldn't believe this was happening. In all my years as a chef, I'd never seen anything like it. Finally, one of our regulars, a calm and collected gentleman, called the police. When they arrived, Karen was still in full meltdown mode. The officers tried to reason with her, but she was beyond listening. She turned her rage on them, accusing them of conspiring with us to poison her. It was absurd, of course, but Karen seemed to genuinely believe it. In the end, they had to handcuff her and take her out of the restaurant. As she was led away, she was still screaming, promising lawsuits. The aftermath was a mess, literally and figuratively. We had to close for the rest of the day to clean up and recover. The waiter was shaken, but okay. And I had salmon in places I didn't know salmon could get. And as for the herb-crusted salmon, it became more popular than ever. It was our little badge of honor, a dish that survived Karen's wrath. And that's a wrap for today's episode of K-Korner. I hope these stories brought a smile to your face or at least made your day a bit more interesting. Remember, life is full of surprises, some good, some not so much, but it's all about how we handle them. Until next time, keep your spirits high and your curiosity alive. This is Crown, signing off.